Hello my friends, and welcome back to Alien Protocols, the Advanced Protocols Data Project. So, UFOs obviously have some stunning abilities. Let's dive in. Of course they must indisputably have some sort of computing ability. And if you think about just 100 years in the future, what our computing would be doing, it's almost unimaginable 100 years from now, especially considering the fact that computing ability grows exponentially. 10 years ago, a computer versus now is very, very different. So when you think about their ability to do calculations incredibly quickly, very complex calculations, they would have an ability to predict things in the future with stunning accuracy. They would have the ability to construct and fabricate and replicate and emulate things with a stunning level. And of course, they would have an ultra-vast computing ability, meaning the amount of data they could store would be virtually limitless. Virtually. They could be storing their computing in a cloud, essentially, somewhere else, and using ultra-fast communications to allow even the smallest craft to have an incredible, vast amount of data and knowledge. And if it was cloud computing and the UFO was just an avatar, they could also take advantage of the ultra-fast computing as well. And you would suspect that they would have a tremendous broad range of sensory input data. They would be able to have an ultra acquisition of data around them at an incredible detail level, but also out to an incredible distance away. Hypothetically, they could be acquiring all of Earth's electromagnetic field data, meaning all of the radios, TVs, computer, everything down to smart toothbrushes. And perhaps even the consciousness of every human on Earth. Now that sounds really fanciful, but we're doing science now that deals with the digitization of thoughts and sharing of thoughts and much more. So it's certainly not out of the question. They could be acquiring all of Earth's biological data, including waves, fields, interactions, not just all the hard metrics. They could be acquiring all of Earth's other data, historic data, potentially, future calculations. The results of just some of these things are they could most likely create non-biological life forms. We can create viruses and robots and do a lot of biological enhancements of even vegetables nowadays. So just imagine what they could do. They could create biological life forms and non-biological life forms. They could replicate and create miraculous effects and items, things that would just be completely stunning to us. Like what we would call a magic wand that wizards would have, could just be a piece of technology to them that could cast lightning bolts and do all sorts of unbelievable things, just in the shape of a little stick or wand. And of course, they could outwit or operate completely undetected, if they so desired. And this is a really important point. The fact that so many craft have been retrieved and have crashed, and so many craft are visible, leads you to believe that that decision to be visible might just be intentional. Especially when you consider how much sensory input and how much data and computing ability they must have. Of course, in terms of biological abilities, they could most likely create complex life. They could do an ultra customization of that complex life. And they would most likely have an ultra understanding of all forms of life and the complex systems that they interact in. They could easily find our weaknesses and much more. So just speculating at some of their technological capabilities, of course they would be ultra fast. They would have stunning amounts of sensory input and output. Stunning power levels if they so chose. They could reach power levels very easily that for us take tremendous efforts. They would have stunning technological abilities, computing abilities, biological abilities. And this is an area I think that's oftentimes overlooked. Efficiencies. Oftentimes people say, oh, this craft has to have this much amount of power or that much amount of power. Well, maybe they don't need stunning power levels. If they're incredibly efficient and are able to recapture what's often waste energy, then they could reach efficiencies that would be pretty stunning to us. And of course, their ability to hide or camouflage themselves, and their ability to operate at an incredible distance must be pretty stunning. So when you look at all of this, you can make speculations. Of course, anti-gravity and gravity nullification, that's pretty obvious. But we communicate instantly. What could they do? Could they communicate faster than instantly? Are they restrained by the speed of light? We know from some tests that have been done that retrocausal PK is a reality. If you've seen our previous videos, if we can have effects backwards in time, perhaps they can as well also. Could they construct spying devices too small or fast or camouflaged to be detected by us? Could they have faster than light, well, causality, faster than causality propulsion systems? Of course, we can presume technological omniscience and most likely some sort of telekinesis. Oh, that's spelled wrong. It's supposed to be an E there. We can transform matter to energy. Perhaps they can easily transform energy into matter. Perhaps even thought waves into energy or matter. They must have some pretty startling abilities. And with the amount of visitation, I don't think that these abilities are fanciful. With the amount of visitation we've been having, I don't think speculating that these abilities are something that they have now is unrealistic. They likely could put all of those abilities into one small craft that would have all of those abilities inherent in it. And most likely at an incredibly high efficiency level. I think that they are not traveling from other universes or dimensions or galaxies. I think the initial visitors were von Neumann type probes. And these von Neumann type probes landed on a moon, probably nearby, and have built a factory of some kind. Maybe even under our oceans. There's no doubt that they have the ability to connect to military craft and shut off their weapon systems and know their next destination points. But we've learned over time they certainly have an ability to affect our consciousness and to affect humans in general. That is a pretty stunning technological level. But what's interesting about it is a lot of the things, as you saw in our previous videos, are things that the human mind can also do. This might just be a two-way street and not just a one-way street. So the many different craft visiting us might be all from one race. And the many different species could even be from one race. One origin species, one primary species, whether it's back at another universe and it had just sent the probes and the initial probe created this factory and the factory created all the different biological lives that have been reported or detected, and building all the craft. That seems not impossible. There have been reports from the government that state, these are, some of these reports are not necessarily the most reputable of reports, but maybe, I can't remember exactly where I heard this supposed document that said there were 4 races. I think it was from the 60s or 70s, the document. I'm not sure which one it was, but maybe there aren't 4 races. Maybe there's just one primary race on a distant planet somewhere who had sent the von Neumann probe that built the factory that has become every sighting we've ever seen. Do you think that's possible? Do you think that's more likely than multiple races? It's really interesting to speculate about this stuff, isn't it, gang? Much love to you and yours.